All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. You ready to get into it today?
Oh, yeah. Always ready to dive in. What do we got?
But today we are going full on tech focused.
Okay, love it.
We were talking AI in Africa.
Oh, wow. AI in Africa. Interesting combination.
Yeah, I gotta admit, when I first saw this topic, I
Yeah.
was kind of thinking like, okay,
Mm.
like, is this just going to be like robots on farms?
Yeah, right?
But then I started looking into it, especially with these two sources that we have this time.
Okay.
One's a podcast from Jangaan Tech,
Okay.
and they actually build AI solutions that are used in Africa.
Uh-huh, very cool.
And then we also have this academic paper that's looking at AI in Africa.
Okay.
And I'm telling you, it is so much more than just robots on farms. There's so many different ways that AI is impacting the continent.
I mean, I'm already really fascinated by, like, the potential economic impact. Like, is this going to be a game changer for businesses in Africa, especially the smaller ones?
Yeah, that was a big question that I had too. Like, you always hear about AI being this big thing for like huge companies.
Right. Yeah.
But can small businesses actually use it and benefit from it?
Right.
And what I found in this Django and Tech podcast especially is that they were talking a lot about how AI can actually level the playing field for those smaller businesses.
Okay, so, like, how does that work?
Well, they gave some really cool examples of how AI can help with operational optimization.
Uh-huh.
So like stuff that would normally take a ton of time and money for a small business to handle AI can just kind of swoop in and do it for them.
Yeah, like what kind of stuff?
Well, they talked about things like managing inventory,
Right,
like
sure.
keeping track of all your products, making sure you don't run out.
Right.
AI can handle that. They talked about using AI for customer service, like through chatbots.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, and even things like predicting, like financial forecasting.
Okay.
AI can help with all that.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, that frees up a ton of time for these smaller businesses to actually focus on growing and, doing the things that they're good at.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
it's like having this super efficient helper in the background who's just like
Right.
taking care of all those tedious tasks so the business owner can focus on the bigger picture.
I like that. Yeah, that's a really good way to put it.
Yeah.
But what about, like, getting to know their customers better? Can AI help with that too?
Absolutely. They actually talked a lot about that in both sources,
Okay.
about how AI can be used to analyze customer data
Uh,
and identify trends and preferences.
okay.
So basically, it's like having a built-in market research team that's powered by algorithms.
So they can, like, target their advertising and stuff much more effectively.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like having a marketing guru, but instead of intuition, it's just data.
Right. Fascinating.
Yeah, and this was something that really surprised me, actually. They talked about how AI is even being used to help businesses access funding.
Oh, really? So, like, even getting loans and things?
Yeah. Exactly. Like, especially for people who've been excluded from traditional banking systems,
Right.
there are companies now that are using AI to assess creditworthiness based on all sorts of different factors.
Wow.
So it's opening up opportunities for entrepreneurs who might not have been able to get a loan before.
So it's like kind of democratizing access to capital in a way.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really powerful idea, right?
Yeah, it is. So, okay, we've talked about these possibilities, but, like, what does this actually look like in the real world?
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing. I was like, okay, this all sounds really amazing in theory,
Yeah.
but what are some concrete examples of how AI is actually being used in Africa?
Well, the Jangaan Tech podcast actually highlighted this company that is using AI to offer loans to people who have never even had a bank account before.
Whoa.
So they're using mobile money data and all sorts of other non-traditional indicators to assess risk and provide access to financial services.
That's incredible. It's like rewriting the rules of finance.
Right. Yeah.
I love that. So what else did you find?
Well, both the podcast and the paper talked about how e-commerce platforms are using AI to create super personalized shopping experiences.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that.
Like, you know how you go on Amazon and it's like, people who bought this also bought that.
Right, yeah.
It's like that, but on steroids. They're analyzing your browsing history,
Yeah.
your purchase patterns, even your social media activity to suggest things that you're actually interested in.
So no more just endless scrolling through irrelevant products.
Right. It's like AI is becoming your personal shopper.
I like it. Okay, so we've got AI helping businesses run more smoothly, helping them market themselves better, helping them get funding, and even changing the way people shop online.
Yeah.
But where else is it making an impact?
One of the biggest areas, and both sources really highlighted this, is agriculture.
Okay, now that makes sense. I mean, food security is a huge issue in Africa.
Absolutely.
So how is AI being used to address that?
Well, think about things like precision farming. AI can analyze soil conditions, weather patterns, even the health of individual plants, to tell farmers exactly how much water and fertilizer to use.
So it's like maximizing efficiency and minimizing waste.
Exactly. Which is crucial in areas facing water scarcity.
Right. So it's like having this high-tech farm manager at your fingertips.
Yeah, exactly. And it goes even further than that. The paper talked about AI systems that can actually predict and even help to mitigate the impacts of climate change on crops.
No way. Like, how does that even work?
They're using data from satellites, weather stations, historical crop yields to forecast things like droughts and pest outbreaks,
Oh, wow.
so farmers can be prepared and adapt their strategies.
So it's like AI is giving them a crystal ball to see the future of their farms.
Kind of, yeah. It's pretty amazing.
That is wild.
What else?
Well, the Jangaan Tech podcast also talked about AI-powered drones that can survey vast fields and collect data on crop health.
Oh, cool.
These drones can cover way more ground than a human ever could, and their sensors can detect things like disease or nutrient deficiencies way before they become visible to the naked eye. So it's like having an army of tiny flying robots working to optimize those crops.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just agriculture.
I know there's so much. We also have to talk about healthcare and education.
Right. Those are huge, too. AI is making waves in those sectors as well.
Okay, well, let's get into it. Then tell me everything.
Hmm.
How is AI transforming healthcare in Africa?
Okay, so imagine this. You're in a really remote village and you need to see a doctor.
Okay.
But the nearest clinic is like hours away.
Yeah.
Well, AI is making it possible to get diagnosed by a doctor who's miles and miles away through telemedicine.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. So like a virtual doctor's visit.
Exactly. And it's already happening in parts of Africa.
So how does it work?
Well, it starts with mobile technology, which is huge in Africa.
Right, almost everyone has a phone these days.
Yeah, so people can use their phones to connect with doctors remotely.
Mhm.
They can send pictures of their symptoms or just describe what's going on.
Okay.
And then AI comes in. It can analyze those images and scan medical records to help doctors make a more accurate diagnosis, even from far away.
So it's like having a medical expert right there in your pocket.
Kind of, yeah.
Hmm.
It's like AI is giving those healthcare workers an extra set of eyes and ears.
And extending their reach into all these remote communities.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just diagnosis, too.
Oh, really?
The paper talked about AI systems that can monitor patients remotely,
Okay.
like track their vital signs and alert doctors if something seems off.
So it's like a 24/7 health checkup.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
It's super helpful for managing chronic conditions.
Right, like diabetes or heart disease, where regular monitoring is so important.
Exactly. Especially in places where it's hard to get to a clinic all the time.
Okay, so we've got AI playing doctor, but what about education?
Oh man, AI is shaking things up there too. Think about this. Africa has a ton of young people,
Right.
and the population is growing really fast, but there aren't enough teachers or resources to keep up.
Right, that makes sense.
So AI is stepping in to fill those gaps.
How-
Well, in that Jangaan Tech podcast, they talked about this really cool AI learning platform.
Okay.
It personalizes lessons based on each student's individual needs and learning style.
Wow. So it's like every student gets their own personal tutor?
Yeah, in a way, AI can figure out what a student is struggling with
Uh-huh.
and then adjust the lessons so they get extra help on those specific things.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. So it's like way more effective than a one-size-fits-all approach.
Totally. And AI can do even more than that. It can grade assignments,
Okay.
provide real-time feedback,
Wow.
and even translate materials into different languages.
No, that's huge for a continent with so much linguistic diversity.
Right. It's breaking down all these barriers to education.
I'm so impressed by all of this. It seems like in every sector we look at, AI has the potential to make such a positive impact.
It really does. And what I find most inspiring is that Africans are leading the charge. They're not just waiting for solutions to be handed to them.
Right. They're building their own AI solutions tailored to their own unique needs.
Exactly. They're taking ownership of this technology and shaping it to fit their vision of the future.
Okay, so it's not just about catching up to the rest of the world. It's about creating something new.
Yes, and that's what makes this so exciting. The Jangaan tech people made a really interesting point.
Okay, what's that?
They said that by developing their own AI solutions, African nations can maintain control over their data and their destiny.
Oh, that's a good point. It's about self-sufficiency and empowerment.
Exactly.
So what makes these African-made solutions so unique? Like, what sets them apart?
Well, one thing is they're often mobile first, because in many parts of Africa, mobile phones are the main way people access the internet.
Right, so they're building solutions that work even on basic devices.
Yeah, they're not waiting for everyone to have the latest smartphone.
That's really smart. They're meeting people where they are.
Right. And they're also really focused on local languages and cultural nuances.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. A lot of AI systems developed elsewhere are primarily in English.
Right. But African innovators are building systems that work in Swahili, Yoruba, Arabic, all sorts of languages.
So they're making sure this technology is accessible to everyone.
Exactly. And the paper highlighted another interesting thing.
Okay, what's that?
They're using alternative data sources because in many parts of Africa, traditional data sets like credit scores or employment records are limited.
Right, I can see that.
So they're getting creative. They're using things like mobile money transactions, social media activity, even weather patterns to train their AI algorithms.
Wow, that's fascinating. So they're taking all this data that's already out there and using it in ways that we might not have even thought of.
Exactly. It's really innovative stuff.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the amazing potential of AI in Africa, but I think it's time to address the elephant in the room,
Uh-oh. What's that?
the challenges. Because, I mean, let's be real. No technology is a magic bullet.
We're absolutely right. There are definitely challenges.
So let's talk about them. What are some of the biggest hurdles facing AI adoption in Africa?
Yeah, so we were talking about challenges, right?
Yeah, I'm curious to hear what you see as the biggest hurdles.
Well, one of the most obvious ones is infrastructure,
Okay.
like internet access, for example. In many parts of Africa, reliable electricity and internet connectivity are still not a given.
Right. That makes sense. I
Yeah.
mean, how can you develop and use AI if you can't even get online?
Exactly. It's a fundamental challenge. But the good news is there are a lot of efforts underway to improve that.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, governments are investing in things like fiber optic cables, mobile networks, even satellite technology to reach those remote areas.
So it sounds like they're really taking it seriously.
Yeah, there's a growing recognition that digital infrastructure is essential for economic growth.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
But what about the people side of things? Like, do they have the skills to
Are you-
actually build and maintain these AI systems?
Yeah, that's another big challenge. The skills gap.
Uh-huh.
But again, there's some really encouraging stuff happening.
Okay, like what?
Well, there are organizations like Data Science Africa. They're a nonprofit that offers training and mentorship to aspiring data scientists.
Wow, so they're creating a pipeline of AI talent.
Exactly. And there are universities and research labs, even private companies that are investing in AI education.
So it seems like there's a lot of momentum building.
There really is. And I think international collaborations play a big role too.
Oh, yeah, how so?
Well, it allows for sharing knowledge and resources and best practices.
Right, so African researchers and entrepreneurs can connect with people from all over the world.
Yeah, exactly. It helps to foster innovation and speed up progress.
But it's got to be done the right way,
Yeah,
right? Like it needs to be a two-way street.
absolutely. It's not about just bringing in outside solutions. It's about collaborating and co-creating solutions that are tailored to Africa's needs.
Right, it's about partnership, not just a handout.
Exactly. And that's what I find so inspiring about all of this. It's about African innovators taking the lead and shaping their own future.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about earlier, that sense of ownership.
Right. It's not just about adopting technology. It's about owning it.
And using it to build the Africa they want to see.
Yes, exactly.
Man, this has been such a fascinating conversation. I feel like I've learned so much.
Me too. It's amazing to see what's happening with AI in Africa.
So as we wrap up here, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from this?
I want them to walk away with a sense of possibility.
Go.
AI has the potential to change Africa in incredible ways, but it's up to all of us to shape that future.
So what can people do?
Stay curious, stay engaged, and keep asking questions.
I love it. That's such a great message.
Yeah.
And to our listeners out there, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into AI in Africa. We hope you found it as eye-opening and inspiring as we did. And remember, this is just the beginning. Keep exploring, keep learning, and who knows, maybe you'll be the one to create the next big AI breakthrough. So until next time, stay curious,